Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about heroic Painsmith Raznal. So, we killed this boss yesterday. As most of you guys will know, this boss is a pretty significant step up in difficulty from the first 5 on heroic or on normal. So if your guild is having a hard time killing this, don't feel bad. A lot of guilds are having a hard time killing this. So anyway, I'm going to go through just a couple tips and tricks for ways that we handled this boss. Hopefully you guys can pick up something. I'm not going to go super in depth on like what each mechanic does and how to handle it, because there are guides for that all over the place, right? Like Echo partnered with a website and made a bunch of guides. I think it's called Mythic Trap or something. But if you just look up Painsmith Raznal guide on YouTube, you should find a decent amount of things that will tell you, like, oh, this is what the chains do, this is what the traps do, etc. So I'm not going to go through those, but I will go through and talk about how we handle specific overlaps and what our strategy was for this boss to hopefully help you guys out. I main a Shadow Priest, and most of my viewers are Shadow Priests, so there may be a couple things in here that I mentioned that are Shadow Priest specific, but for the most part, I'll try to keep it really general so that even if you don't play Shadow Priest, you can learn something from this video. Okay, so let's just get right into it. The first thing that's going to happen, the first 3 mechanics on this fight are the chains, and then the tank weapon, and then the third thing is the spiked ball wall. So I like to position myself kind of off here in the corner just for these chains. If I get the chains on me now, I don't have to move at all. Although this other Shadow Priest is standing a little close, and I do end up moving just a little bit because the chains go on both of us. But the way we handle this is in phase 1, we tank the boss over in this quadrant, and then we take the axe to the other quadrant, so that we're far away for the fall-off damage, and I'm out of the group so that I'm not hitting people with my chains. And then the spiked ball wall comes up, and this is where I make my first big mistake. We should be focusing the middle ball. This very first ball is still within a lot of people's cooldown windows, so it's not the end of the world if 1 or 2 DPS aren't hitting the spiked ball, right? Most groups will be able to kill it, without any troubles. This first ball specifically, it just melted for our guild. So right here, I don't target that middle spiked ball at all, mostly because I'm trying to... At this point, I had decided that I was going to Night Fae Blink across these balls, which ends up being the wrong choice. So what I should have done here is walk over here, back behind everybody else, focus the ball down, and then just handle the mechanic the way everybody else handles the mechanic, which is you kill the ball, the group runs through, and then the chain people run through. But I decided not to do that. I decided that it would be easier, I'd get more uptime on the boss or whatever if I just blink through the balls, and that becomes my death. So I turn and I blink through the balls, just barely, by the way. They come through, and then the way we handle these tank weapons is every time you run through a wall of balls, the tank weapons go to the front left, which would be triangle, because we're like 180 degrees from the direction you would be running, right? So if you're running from over here, where my mouse is, to over here, then front left would be this way, right? So the tank wants to bring this weapon to triangle, and I'm directly in the way, right? Which is really bad because I have the chains on me, so I'm going to bounce him back if he tries running past me. Luckily, I realized this, and I got out of the way like right as he jumped by. But you'll see in a second, I'm standing really close to this axe that's about to come down, and it does a ton of damage. It does fall-off damage, so you don't want to be this close, right? And on top of that, in phase 1, which we're in right now, the axe does a cross, right? So it'll hit these 2 columns of squares and these 2 columns of squares, and I'm standing in the cross. So what happens is I take a ton of damage from the fall-off damage, and then I get killed by the spikes. So this was a really bad play by my part. I should have just gone to the back and run through like everybody else. And then we take the traps in phase 1 just over to this corner away from the group. And then the people with the chains, want to stay out of the group. We're going to take this weapon back to X because it's still phase 1 and there's not a spiked ball wall. So in phase 1, we default to taking the weapon to X. We tank the boss over near triangle triangle and X are on opposite corners, right? So we tank it near triangle, we take the weapon to X. So this guy should be probably over here where this guy is. And then this mage over here is the guy who's doing the traps for us. You should probably just designate one person to hit the traps, preferably somebody who is good at mechanics, right? And can handle doing something like this while also doing as much damage as possible. So this is one of our officers handles this. But this mechanic is really pretty simple. You can just pop 3 of the traps and then let the spikes pop the last one. Typically, but we end up popping all 4 right here. And then we get another spiked ball wall. And when the boss hits 70%, he's going to jump away. So for some guilds, you'll hit 70% while this ball wall is coming across. If that does happen and he jumps away, he's got some weird spell queuing stuff, so he might not jump away immediately at 70%. He might jump away. You'll still have some time to hit him, and he might jump away at like 69 or 68%, right? But if he does jump away while the balls are out, he'll break a couple of them. So you don't have to worry about actually hitting the middle one, although you should be in the habit of just hitting the middle one every single time. So you can see we already marked one with a square. So what I like to do is, right now you can see my camera is pointed almost top down, right? I'm going to turn the camera to face these balls, so the camera's going to be over here somewhere. And I'm going to bring it really close to the platform so that it's easier, you'll see, so that it's easier to click on these nameplates, right? So because I have the camera down and facing the balls, you can click on any of these spiked balls individually really easily. So it makes it easy for me to click on this skull one and start hitting it, right? And then these chain guys need to stand near the back. And like you'll see right here, the axe goes forward and then to the left, right? So the chain guys come through last, and then we hit the intermission. You can see he's at 68% right there. And then this part, the intermission is super easy. You just need to be aware of what happens. So every so often, you'll spawn little swirlies under your feet as he's forging this weapon, right? And you need to move out of them. So what we do is we stack up in really like 2 groups. But you want to stack up so that the swirlies are all on top of each other. And then every time they come out, you run forward, you run over to the area, and then you start moving backwards. So that it's just easier to... You don't want people in a big long line in this column, because then it's really hard to dodge the swirlies. And then we use movement abilities to go across for the far ones, like that Windrush totem. But that should be pretty straightforward. Okay, now we're in phase 2, and this is when it starts to get more complicated. So the chains come out, and then immediately after these chains come out, you're going to get a hammer. So this is on the tank again. We're back to our positioning in phase 1. He takes it over to X. We use an AMZ here. And then you have an overlap right here. So as you can see, you can probably barely see it right here, but the ripple is coming across, and the spike balls are just now spawning. So what I like to do, excuse me, sorry. What I like to do is handle the spikes first, and then worry about the ball wall. But depending on where you are, like I'm way back here, so I should be focusing the ball wall, just keeping an eye on the spikes, and then once this is dead, I can walk through the spikes just easy. So we'll see what I end up doing here. So I focus, I hit one that's not skull, and then I hit skull, and then yeah, what you want to do is just like I did right there. So as soon as the spikes come up and they're fully extended, you can walk into them. So don't be afraid. A lot of people think that it's a really, really tight window to go across these spikes, but it's not. As soon as they're up like that, like now you could walk into it. So it's like, as soon as they're up, they'll do no damage if you step into them. They only do damage when they first pop out of the ground. So when they're already fully extended, again, you should move into them to walk through them, right? We'll see how I handle it right here, because we have another overlap. This is another one of those hard overlaps where you need to be focusing both of these things at the same time, right? Yeah, so I just walk straight through it. Simple and easy. You don't need any kind of movement ability or anything. One thing that I will mention, if you see right here, these 2 squares, let's say the spikes are coming from over here and it's like boom, 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 right? It's coming on these squares. If you're standing on this square right here, you should be standing close to the edge where the spikes are going to be, right? So the spikes are coming from your left if you're facing this way, right? So you want to be standing close to this edge, and then as soon as these spikes right next to you come up, you can step like 5 yards, like not very far. Just step over the edge, and then they'll come up on this square, and you're done with the mechanic, right? You don't have to worry about moving like 3 squares to get across them or anything like that. Just stand close to where they're going to be, right? You want to be outside of the square, but pretty close to it. And then as soon as it comes up, boom, you just step over. You could do it with like 50% reduced move speed or something. You could RP walk and be able to handle those spikes just fine. The timing is not super tight. You just need to be aware of where they're coming from and position well. Like if you were on this edge, for instance, and the spikes were coming from over here, you'd have to run across this whole square and into this square to dodge them. But if you're standing on this close edge, all you have to do is step over the line and you're fine, right? So that's like a lot of people were having a hard time with the spikes because of that. But if you know where they're coming from, you need to choose where you're going to be standing and then like choose which column you're going to step over the line during, right? I don't know if I explained that well. But like if they're over here and they're coming this way, I'll be like, okay, in 5 steps or whatever, it's going to be right here. So I'm going to stand right here on this edge while I'm hitting the boss so that as soon as they pop up here, I step across. You just need to think about it, predict where they're going to be, and then make a plan ahead of time so that you can, step over the edge like that. That's a super big tip though. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, once they understand that, standing close to the spikes and then moving in ASAP, that will help you deal with the spikes just fine every time. Okay, so then we have another set of traps, and these spikes are coming out. What we did here, you'll notice that that spiked ball wall came from over here, down this way to over there, right? We run through the wall this way, which means that the tank weapon needs to go to the front left again, right, which is that corner, and then the traps go to the right. And this is why we do that, because these 4 traps over here, we just popped 1, so there's only 3 left, right? But we're just going to pop 2 more, and we'll leave the final trap, so that this ripple of spikes, as it comes across, it'll pop that final trap, right? So you'll see there's 1 more trap. We pop it, and then the debuff falls off, and these spikes hit the last trap, and now we're good, right? So then we're into the Intermission 2. And this one is a little bit faster, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not, but it felt a little bit faster. But that could just be that it was late and we had been on this boss for a bit. So then, yeah, we just do the exact same thing as Intermission 1. You stack up, you dodge the swirlies, so you run forward, and then you run backwards, right? And you want to make sure that the reason we're running forward and then backward is because if you go forward through the spikes every single time, you'll end up at the edge of the platform, right? So you want to go forward to get through, and then you want to reset your position so that you can be, not on the edge of the platform. And that's the end of Intermission 2. Not too bad. There is some damage going out. There's this dot of fire damage. So that's a good time to use any off healing you have. And then I will mention for DPS players, if you use 3-minute cooldowns, so like Boomkins or anybody else who uses a 3-minute cooldown, you want to use your first use on pull, and then you want to save your second use for this phase 3, right? Because this is when you'll lust. And for Shadow Priests specifically, you use Mindbender on pull, and then you get a second use in phase 1, and then you're going to want all 3 of these cooldowns. You're going to want Mindbender, Power Infusion, and Void Form for the beginning of phase 3. So you hold on to your second Power Infusion because it'll come up at around 2 minutes, and you don't want to use it right then because you want to have it up for lust right here, right? This is also when you'll use your damage potion. And then right now, it's starting to get real crazy, right? So everybody's got like a ton of fire damage going, and this is when you really, really need to blast. Also, the tank mechanic becomes harder in this phase. So these 2 people get the chains, they run out. The scythe goes on the tank, he takes it over to X, and it does the cross. Boom, there's the cross, and then it starts the ripple, and the spiked balls come out at the same time. So tanks might have a hard time with this. So then I'm focusing Skull. I stand in the square, I run across. I get stunned on this one, actually, because I went across 2 squares instead of just going across 1. You take the weapon to the front left, right? And the traps came over to the right, which is perfect. And then we're just doing 1 trap at a time again. he's going to hit this third trap, and then we're going to let the spikes hit the last one. So you'll see he's not going to hit the last trap. He blinks across, the spikes go over, and they hit this last trap. And then the scythe goes back to X because we don't have a ball wall, right? And then we get another ripple, more spiked balls. I will also mention, for Shadow Priests, you should be using Vampiric Embrace pretty much on cooldown for this fight. There is a decent amount of healing that needs to happen, especially near the end, right? So in phase 1, it's not super important to use it, but by phase 3, it's very important to use it. And if your healers want to like assign a time to use it, it's really good to use it around those traps because the traps do a lot of damage, right? But using it on cooldown is also not a bad idea. But yeah, like I was saying, around the traps, you're going to be taking a lot of damage. So usually healing cooldowns are going on right there. So Vampiric Embrace can help as a throughput cooldown to keep people alive, right? So yeah, this is pretty much the end of the fight. We're still just focusing those spiked balls. Okay, so that is a really good example right there. So let me go back just a little bit. It's like 46-30. Okay, so if we watch, I'll show you exactly how to handle this spike mechanic. So here it comes right here. I noticed that it's going to be, so here's the line of where it's going to be, right? I'm focusing skull right now. So after it pops up right here, it's going to pop up on this area, right? So I can either right now, yeah, so what I should do is I should move to this square right here, and I should stand on this edge, right? It's kind of hard to see, but I want to stand right next to where it's going to be in the next step. So maybe I can even slow this down. Oh yeah, I can. Okay, so let's go 0.25 speed. I'll hit play. So the spikes come up, I walk over to this edge. I'm right underneath the play button right now. I'm standing really close to them. So they pop up, I step through immediately. I'm already done with the mechanic, right? I moved like 5 yards and we're good, right? Then you just need to focus the spiked ball. And then once that's done, you still need to handle these last couple mechanics. It's important to not tunnel the boss, even though it's almost dead. So we take the traps to the right, we take that to the top left. We pop a couple healing cooldowns right here. I have another void form ready that I should be using, so I do. And then I walk through this. And then, yeah, that's basically the end of the fight. There will be another scythe coming out. Again, make sure you do it. Don't just sit in the middle of the raid. And then the spike comes out. And GG. That's the whole boss. So hopefully this helped. I realized that I might have been a little long-winded or whatever, but hopefully you guys got something good out of this. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a like. If you really liked it, feel free to subscribe or share it with your friends or whatever. Leave a comment if you think I missed anything or if you think there's a better way to handle any of these mechanics. Because, I mean, there definitely could be. We only had like 7 pulls on this boss, so I didn't get much time to, come up with the best way to handle everything. But again, yeah, hopefully this helped, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.